Hello, my name is Elizabeth Wolfrey, and I am a DMA candidate at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm here today virtually to present my lightning talk, More of What Works, How Interleaved Practicing Can Revolutionize Your Practice. Before I talk about interleaved practicing, I want to start today by asking each of you the two questions I ask my students in their first lesson. We'll start off with the easy one. Why do you love to play the flute? This is the first flute-related question that I'll ask students in their new lesson when I get to know them, and it's one of my favorites because no matter the age of the student, the answers are always magical. The next question, not so magical. Do you like to practice? It's always amazing to me when I meet a new student and they gush to me about how much they love playing the instrument. Then, when asked if they like to practice, it's almost as if they forgot all about the things they loved. I can't blame them though. There's nothing more frustrating than struggling and fighting your way through a practice session only to leave the practice room feeling like you haven't made any progress. And if this happens over and over again, the brain's negativity bias takes over and labels practicing as a negative activity that's tied to negative emotions and experiences. When you factor in that we're practicing new and difficult things, it's no wonder that practicing is associated with negative emotions and events. Most of us practice in the most intuitive and talked about way. We block practice. On the blog The Bulletproof Musician, Dr. Christine Carter defines block practice as a practice session in which all repetitions of one activity are completed before moving on to a second activity. What this looks like in the practice room are long blocks of time devoted to one particular task until satisfactory progress has been made in the allotted time before moving on to the next, and so forth. In interleaved practicing, the same total amount of time may be spent in the practice session, but the organization of how time is spent is altered. Rather than focusing on one activity until it feels completed before moving on to the next, two or more similar activities are practiced in shorter chunks of time and rotated through more quickly. Here's an example of what a typical blocked practice session looks like compared to a potential interleaved practice session. Notice how both methods use the same total 90 minutes and the same three pieces, but in the interleaved organization, 10 minutes time blocks are rotated through three different times. At the end of the session, we'll still have spent 30 minutes total on each piece, but by rotating through the excerpts more quickly, we're going through a more mentally effortful learning process. Interleaved is more mentally effortful because each rotation initiates the forgetting process, and each return initiates the learning process, thus creating deeper learning through effortful recall across time. So how do you interleave? I'm the first to admit that it takes a little bit of planning to get started. You'll want to walk into the practice knowing which sections you're going to work on so that you can set up your timer for however long and dive right in without having to think about where you're going next. You can interleave in the same practice session or interleave practice sessions throughout the day, but no matter what, as long as you're allowing yourself to go through the brief forgetting process and the brief relearning process, you're still gaining the benefits of effortful revisit and deepening your learning. If you can interleave in a given block of time and interleave throughout the day, coming back to the activity again, you'll truly be unstoppable and your brain will thank you. In his book, Sound in Motion, David McGill talks about meaningful repetition and how it's more important in learning than mindless repetition because music doesn't just happen by chance or by accident. It's through thoughtful, diligent, and consistent practice. We don't practice just to practice. We practice so that in the performance and in the audition, our skills show up. And what we practiced is what happens on stage in the moment it counts. Before I started interleaving my practice, I thought I had it all figured out and knew how to practice and found a system that worked for me within a blocked practice model. But my performances and auditions were inconsistent. When I deliberately changed how I organized my practice sessions, I gained more confidence in my playing that translated to my performances. When I started playing a piece, I could focus on what was happening in the moment and not worry about the scary section coming up on the third page. I also noticed that after my interleaved practice sessions, although I didn't feel as obviously accomplished as in a blocked session, when I went back to the practice room hours later, or even the following day, the work that I had done in the interleaved session actually stuck. My recall was faster and more secure, so I was able to focus on playing music rather than just playing notes. I hope you'll try interleaved practicing and that you find it an effective and revolutionary new way to practice. Thank you.